Water is not a luxury, it's your deadline. You have 3 days, maybe 4 if you're lucky, before dehydration shuts down your organs one by one. And here's the brutal truth most people ignore. When disaster strikes, clean water vanishes faster than you think. Floods contaminate everything with sewage and chemicals. Earthquakes rupture water lines and turn reservoirs into bacterial breeding grounds. Power outages stop treatment plants cold. One hurricane, one terrorist attack on infrastructure, one solar flare that fries the grid, and suddenly that tap you've trusted your entire life goes silent. Before we dive deep into the methods that will actually keep you alive, hit that subscribe button right now, because the information you're about to learn isn't just useful. It could be the difference between life and a painful death from dysentery when society breaks down. Most people have this fantasy that they'll just boil water and everything will be fine. Boiling kills pathogens, sure, but it does absolutely nothing for heavy metals, chemicals, pesticides, or radioactive particles. After Fukushima, boiling water didn't remove cesium-137. After Flint, Michigan boiling didn't extract lead from the pipes. When industrial facilities flood or collapse, thousands of gallons of toxic chemicals pour into water sources, and your little camping pot on a fire won't touch them. You need real filtration, and you need to understand exactly what you're filtering out and why each method works. Because one mistake means contaminated water in your body, and in a collapse scenario, there's no emergency room to pump your stomach or give you IV fluids. Let's start with what you're actually fighting against. Waterborne threats fall into 4 categories: biological pathogens like bacteria, viruses, and parasites, chemical contaminants including pesticides, industrial waste, and heavy metals, physical particles like dirt, sediment, and debris, and radiological threats in specific disaster scenarios. Each category requires different approaches. A filter that stops giardia won't touch arsenic. A method that removes chlorine won't kill hepatitis A. You need layered defense, multiple methods working together, and you need to understand the science behind each one so you can adapt when supplies run low or conditions change. The foundation of all water filtration starts with pre-filtering, and this step alone can extend the life of your actual filters by weeks or even months. Take any container, punch small holes in the bottom, and layer it with materials from bottom to top. Grass or coffee filters at the very bottom, then a layer of fine sand about 6 inches deep, then a layer of crushed charcoal about 4 inches deep, then a layer of gravel about 4 inches deep, and finally, larger rocks at the top. Pour dirty water through the top, and what comes out the bottom is clearer, with most large particles and some bacteria removed. This is the ancient method used for thousands of years, and it works because you're creating a physical barrier that traps progressively smaller particles as water moves through each layer. But here's the critical part. This removes sediment and some bacteria, not viruses, not chemicals. This is step 1, not your final defense. Sand filtration specifically deserves deeper attention because it's the most accessible method when modern filters fail. The key is understanding that not all sand works the same way. You want fine sand, almost powder-like, because water filtration happens in the tiny spaces between grains. Coarse sand lets too much through. The ideal setup uses a tall column, at least 3 feet, packed densely with sand that's been washed multiple times to remove dust and organic matter. As water slowly percolates through, a biological layer called a Schmutzdecke forms at the top surface within a few weeks. This living layer of beneficial bacteria actually consumes harmful pathogens, making the filter biological as well as physical. Slow sand filters, when properly constructed and maintained, can remove up to 99% of bacteria and protozoa. The flow rate is slow, maybe 1 to 2 liters per hour, but in a sustained crisis, this could serve a family indefinitely. The maintenance is simple. When flow slows, scrape off the top ½ inch of sand, rinse it, and put it back. Now let's talk about charcoal, because this is where chemical filtration begins. Activated charcoal works through adsorption, where contaminants stick to the massive surface area of the porous carbon structure. 1 gram of activated charcoal has a surface area of up to 3,000 square meters. That's almost the size of a football field, compressed into something the size of a sugar cube. This pulls chlorine, pesticides, herbicides, volatile organic compounds, and many chemicals right out of water. But you cannot just grab any charcoal from your campfire. Campfire charcoal has tar, ash, and chemicals that will contaminate your water worse than it started. You need to make activated charcoal properly. Take hardwood, burn it down to pure black charcoal, let it cool, then crush it into small pieces. Boil these pieces in a solution of 1 part calcium chloride or zinc chloride to 3 parts water for 3 hours. Rinse thoroughly until the water runs clear. This chemical treatment opens up the pore structure, creating true activated charcoal. Pack this into a filter column, and you now have chemical filtration capability. But even activated charcoal has limits. It doesn't remove heavy metals effectively, it doesn't kill pathogens, and it saturates after filtering a certain volume of water. Once saturated, it stops working and can even release trapped contaminants back into your water. In a survival situation, you need to refresh your charcoal supply regularly. The good news, you can reactivate used charcoal by heating it to around 400 degrees Celsius for about 3 hours, which burns off the trapped contaminants and reopens the pores. This means with just fire and wood, you have renewable chemical filtration capacity. Ceramic filtration offers another layer of defense, and this is where you can get creative with materials. True ceramic filters are manufactured with precise pore sizes down to 0.2 microns, small enough to block bacteria and protozoa. In a DIY scenario, you can create effective ceramic filters using natural clay. The process requires clay with high plasticity, formed into a pot or candle shape, then fired at around 900 degrees Celsius. The firing process creates microscopic pores throughout the ceramic structure. Water seeps through, but bacteria physically cannot fit through the tiny passages. Communities in developing countries have used this method successfully for decades. The Potters for Peace organization documented ceramic filter production that reduced diarrheal disease by 60 to 70% in areas without clean water infrastructure. If you have access to clay deposits and can build a kiln, you have the ability to produce filters that will last years. Solar disinfection, called SODIS, is scientifically proven and requires nothing but plastic bottles and sunlight. Fill clear plastic bottles with water, shake them to oxygenate, and place them on a reflective surface in direct sunlight for at least 6 hours or 2 days if cloudy. UVA radiation and increased temperature work together to destroy bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Research by the Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science and Technology showed that SODIS reduces diarrheal illness by up to 50%. The science is solid. UVA damages DNA and RNA in microorganisms, preventing reproduction and killing them. The method is simple, free, and infinitely scalable. The limitations: it doesn't remove chemicals or heavy metals, it requires sunlight, and it works only with clear or slightly turbid water. If water is heavily clouded, pre-filter it first. Use this method for biological disinfection after physical and chemical filtration. Distillation is the nuclear option for water purification, the only method that removes virtually everything: bacteria, viruses, parasites, heavy metals, salts, chemicals, even radioactive particles. The physics is straightforward. You heat water until it vaporizes, collect the vapor, and condense it back into liquid. Contaminants with higher boiling points stay behind. You can build a simple distillation setup with basic materials. Take a large pot, fill it with contaminated water, place a heat-safe collection bowl in the center floating on the surface, cover the pot with a lid placed upside down, and put ice or cold water on top of the inverted lid. As water boils, vapor rises, hits the cold lid, condenses, and drips into the collection bowl. What collects is pure distilled water. The downside: this method is fuel-intensive, slow, and removes beneficial minerals along with contaminants. In radiation scenarios or chemical contamination, distillation might be your only safe option. Bleach disinfection sounds too simple to trust, but sodium hypochlorite, unscented household bleach, is one of the most reliable emergency disinfectants available. The CDC recommends 8 drops of 6% bleach per gallon of water, 16 drops if the water is cloudy. Mix thoroughly and let it stand for 30 minutes. The water should have a slight chlorine smell. If it doesn't, repeat the dose and wait another 15 minutes. The chlorine oxidizes and destroys cell walls of bacteria and viruses. This method is fast, effective, and uses a product most people already have. The critical rules: use only regular, unscented bleach without additives. Scented or splashless bleaches contain chemicals you don't want to drink. Check the concentration, as bleach degrades over time. After 6 months, bleach loses about 20% of its strength. After a year, it may be too weak to disinfect reliably. Rotate your supply, mark purchase dates, and adjust dosage for older bleach. Iodine offers another chemical disinfection option, particularly effective against Giardia cysts that are resistant to chlorine. Add 5 drops of 2% iodine tincture per liter of clear water, 10 drops if cloudy. Wait 30 minutes before drinking. Iodine is powerful but comes with warnings. Pregnant women should avoid it, people with thyroid conditions should limit use, and iodine gives water an unpleasant taste. Long-term use can cause thyroid problems. Use iodine for short-term emergencies, not as a permanent solution. One advantage over bleach: iodine crystals can be used to create a saturated solution that lasts indefinitely, providing thousands of liters of treatment capacity from a single small bottle of crystals. Moringa oleifera seeds provide a natural, sustainable coagulant that clarifies water and reduces bacteria. Crush moringa seeds into powder, mix with a small amount of clean water to form a paste, add this to your dirty water, and stir vigorously for 5 minutes. Let it settle for 1 to 2 hours. The crushed seeds contain proteins that act as natural coagulants, binding to particles and bacteria, causing them to clump and sink to the bottom. Research published in the Journal of Applied Sciences showed that moringa seed treatment reduced bacterial contamination by 90 to 99%. This method is especially valuable in tropical regions where moringa trees grow abundantly. The seeds are renewable, the process requires no fuel or technology, and the treated water is safe to drink after the sediment settles, and you carefully pour off the clear water from the top. Biosand filters represent perhaps the ultimate DIY filtration system for long-term survival scenarios. These are slow sand filters enhanced with biological treatment and multiple filtration layers. The design uses a container about 3 feet tall, filled with layers of gravel and sand, with a biofilm layer that develops over time. The key difference from basic sand filters is the standing water layer maintained above the sand. This keeps the biofilm alive continuously, and the biofilm becomes incredibly efficient at consuming pathogens. Properly constructed biosand filters can remove up to 98% of bacteria, 99% of protozoa, and up to 70% of viruses. Organizations like Costi have documented biosand filters providing safe water for families in developing countries for over 10 years without replacement. The filter requires no power, no consumables, and minimal maintenance. If you're building for sustained survival, this is your infrastructure investment. One critical mistake people make is assuming any filtration makes water safe. Different threats require different solutions, and you need to match your methods to your water source. River water after flooding likely contains sewage, requiring biological treatment, chemical filtration, and disinfection. Water from abandoned buildings might contain lead from old pipes, requiring distillation or specific media that binds heavy metals. Agricultural runoff contains pesticides and fertilizers, demanding activated charcoal filtration. In industrial areas, chemical contamination requires specialized approaches. Always assess your water source, understand likely contamination, and layer multiple treatment methods. Testing your filtered water becomes crucial when you can't trust your methods blindly. Without a lab, you rely on observation and common sense. Clear water isn't necessarily safe, but cloudy water is definitely unsafe. Smell for petroleum, chemicals, or sewage. Taste a tiny amount and spit it out. Chemical contamination often leaves a metallic or bitter taste. Watch for illness after drinking small amounts. In a group survival situation, designate someone to test new water sources first, waiting 24 hours before others drink. This is harsh calculus, but it's reality. Better one person sick than everyone. Keep records of which sources and treatment combinations worked, which made people ill, and refine your process over time. Storage and handling of filtered water matters as much as filtration itself. Clean containers are essential. Contaminated storage ruins all your filtration work. Sanitize containers with dilute bleach solution, rinse thoroughly, and air dry before filling. Use containers with narrow openings to prevent contamination from hands or insects. Never drink directly from storage. Pour into a separate clean cup. This prevents backwash and contamination. In hot climates, store water in cool, dark places to slow bacterial growth. Add 2 drops of bleach per gallon to stored water as a precaution against recontamination. Rotate stored water every few months, using it for washing and refilling with fresh filtered water. The reality of long-term water filtration in a collapsed society means building redundancy into every system. You need multiple filtration methods because materials wear out, supplies run low, and conditions change. Set up a primary biosand filter for volume capacity. Maintain a ceramic or sand filter as backup. Keep chemical disinfectants sealed and dated. Know how to make activated charcoal from scratch, and practice distillation in case of chemical contamination. Each method covers different threats and compensates for others' weaknesses. This isn't paranoia. This is engineering for reliability when failure means death. Understanding watershed protection becomes your long-term survival strategy. If you control or can protect a clean water source upstream, you minimize filtration requirements. In a sustained crisis, defend spring sources, protect wellheads from contamination, prevent human and animal waste from entering water sources, and monitor for chemical dumping. Communities have survived for millennia by protecting water sources first, treating water second. Your filtration capability is your insurance, but source protection is your wealth. The tools and materials for DIY filtration aren't exotic or expensive. Sand, gravel, and charcoal are everywhere. Clay exists in most regions. Plastic bottles litter the landscape. Food-grade containers, buckets, and pipes are found in abandoned homes and buildings. In a real collapse, the materials for water filtration are among the most available resources. What's rare is knowledge, skill, and the discipline to execute properly. That's why you practice now. Build filters before you need them. Test different methods. Learn what works in your environment with your water sources. Time spent now saves lives later. If you want to go deeper into these methods, understand the engineering calculations for filter sizing, learn the chemistry behind different contaminants, or access detailed construction plans for various filter types, check the pinned comment, where you'll find guides and documents that take your preparedness to the next level. But don't just read and move on. Build something this week. Test a sand filter. Make activated charcoal. Practice distillation. The knowledge in your head means nothing if your hands don't know how to execute it under pressure when water runs out and people are desperate. Water filtration is the most fundamental survival skill because water is the most critical resource. Food can wait. Shelter can be improvised. Security can be managed. But without clean water, you have days before your body starts failing. Every person who survives long-term in a collapsed world will be someone who mastered water. Not just how to find it, but how to make it safe against every threat. Bacteria that cause cholera and dysentery, viruses that spread hepatitis and polio, parasites that destroy your intestines, chemicals that poison your organs, and heavy metals that accumulate and kill slowly. Each threat has a solution, and now you know them all. If this information matters to you, if you understand that clean water knowledge is survival knowledge, then make sure you're not just learning alone. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it before it's too late. Drop a comment about which filtration method you're going to build first or what water challenges exist in your region. And hit that like button so this reaches more people who are serious about preparedness, because when the water stops flowing, the information you share today could save someone's life tomorrow. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're building a community of people who don't wait for disaster to take action, who learn the hard skills that matter, and who understand that survival isn't about hoping for rescue. It's about knowing exactly what to do when everything breaks down. Clean water doesn't appear magically. You make it safe through knowledge, preparation, and the will to execute when others panic. That starts now, not when the crisis hits.